A former CIA officer has warned that the sinking of a U.S. aircraft carrier is no ordinary military incident, but a turning point in a potentially large-scale global conflict.
In the modern geopolitical world, aircraft carriers are not only a symbol of military power, but also a direct representation of the influence, dominance, and credibility of the United States on the international stage. The destruction of even one aircraft carrier can drastically change the balance of power and trigger a chain reaction that is difficult to control. American aircraft carriers are known as one of the most powerful military assets ever created. With the ability to carry tens to hundreds of combat aircraft, advanced defense systems, and supported by a fleet of guards such as destroyers and nuclear submarines, this ship is not just a tool of war, but a floating military base that can be moved to almost all corners of the world. Its presence in a region is often a strong signal that America is ready to defend its interests, whether through diplomacy or military force. The former CIA officer explained that if an aircraft carrier is successfully sunk by an enemy, it will be considered a direct attack on the sovereignty and power of the United States. This is no longer a limited conflict or an ordinary military operation, but rather an act of major aggression that will almost certainly trigger a massive military response. In American military doctrine, an attack on a strategic asset such as an aircraft carrier can be categorized as an extreme escalation that requires an equivalent or even greater retaliation. Furthermore, the impact is not only limited to the United States and the attacking party. U.S. allies, especially those in military alliances such as NATO, are likely to be involved. The principle of collective defense means that an attack on one member can be considered an attack on the entire alliance. This opens up the possibility of a regional conflict turning into a global war in a short time. In addition, there are psychological and symbolic factors that cannot be ignored. American aircraft carriers have long been considered almost untouchable, protected by the most advanced defense technologies in the world. If the ship is successfully destroyed, then the global perception of American military dominance could collapse. This can encourage other countries to take more aggressive steps, taking advantage of such moments of weakness. This situation has the potential to create a dangerous domino effect. In the current context of global tensions, especially in regions such as the Middle East and Asia-Pacific, this risk is becoming increasingly real. Countries with rapidly growing military capabilities now have advanced anti-ship missile technology specifically designed to target aircraft carriers. Some of them are even able to evade air defense systems and attack with great precision. This means that the threat to aircraft carriers is no longer theoretical, but rather very real. The former officer also highlighted that in this type of situation, time becomes a crucial factor. The decision to respond to an attack should be taken in a matter of hours, even minutes. Political and military pressure will be enormous, prompting leaders to act quickly. However, decisions taken in conditions of high pressure often run the risk of aggravating the situation, especially if they involve the use of great powers or even nuclear weapons. On the other hand, there are also concerns about miscalculations. In modern conflicts, not all attacks are obvious or direct. A cyber attack, misidentification, or deliberate provocation can trigger a disproportionate response. If an aircraft carrier is attacked under ambiguous conditions, for example without a clear claim of responsibility, the situation can become even more dangerous because it increases the risk of misdirection and retaliation. This warning is basically a reminder that the world is currently in a very sensitive condition. The global balance of power is no longer as stable as before. With so many actors possessing advanced military capabilities, the potential for a major conflict always lies beneath the surface. The sinking of an American aircraft carrier could be the trigger that opens the door to an uncontrollable escalation. Nevertheless, the purpose of this warning is not to cause fear, but rather to raise awareness of the importance of diplomacy and conflict prevention. In many cases, military force is used as a balancing tool to prevent war, rather than start it. The presence of aircraft carriers themselves often serves as a deterrent, that is, to prevent other parties from taking aggressive actions. In the end, the world is at a crossroads between strength and prudence. One big incident can change everything in a short time. That is why every step in an international conflict must be very carefully taken into account. This warning from a former CIA officer is a reminder that behind great powers, there are always great risks lurking. And in today's global context, even one small mistake can lead the world to a much bigger conflict, even World War III. This kind of tension is also exacerbated by the domestic political dynamics of each country. When an American aircraft carrier is attacked and sinks, pressure from the public, the media, and the political elite increases dramatically. The United States government faces not only military challenges from outside, but also internal demands to demonstrate strength and defend national honor. In situations like this, the option of restraint is often perceived as a weakness, so the path of escalation becomes more likely to be taken. Furthermore, this kind of event will instantly shake the global market. International trade routes, especially those passing through conflict areas, could be significantly disrupted. World oil prices have the potential to jump sharply if the conflict involves strategic regions such as the Middle East. Investors will react quickly to uncertainty, causing global stock markets to be volatile. The impact is felt not only by the countries directly involved, but also by the world economy as a whole. No less important is the technological dimension in modern conflicts. Today, warfare takes place not only on land, sea, or air, but also in cyberspace. Before or after an attack on an aircraft carrier, there will likely be a massive cyber attack targeting critical infrastructure such as power grids, communications systems, and financial facilities. This kind of attack can cripple a country without having to send large numbers of physical troops, expanding the battlefield into more complex and difficult to control realms. In addition, the development of hypersonic weapons technology adds a new layer of threat. This weapon is capable of traveling at very high speeds and is difficult to detect by conventional defense systems. If it is used to attack aircraft carriers, the chances of being intercepted become much smaller. This increases the likelihood of success of the attack and at the same time magnifies the risk of escalation, as the attacked party may feel that it does not have enough time to respond in a measured manner. In a more extreme scenario, a conflict provoked by the sinking of an aircraft carrier could develop into a confrontation between the great powers of the world. Countries such as Russia or China, for example, can be involved both directly and indirectly, depending on their strategic interests in the region. If more than one major power is involved, then the conflict has the potential to escalate into a global war involving multiple fronts around the world. In the midst of all these possibilities, the role of diplomacy becomes crucial. The channels of communication between the great powers must remain open, even in the most tense situations. In history, many major conflicts have been prevented because of effective communication behind the scenes. However, if this communication is interrupted or fails, then the risk of misunderstanding will increase dramatically, accelerating the escalation towards open conflict. There are also regional alliance factors that can complicate the situation. Countries that have mutual defense agreements may feel obligated to take part in the conflict, even if they were not directly involved in the initial incident. This creates a snowball effect, in which an initially limited conflict can expand rapidly due to the involvement of many parties. The former CIA officer stressed that the world today is in very different conditions than it was several decades ago. In the past, major conflicts often involved two main blocks with clear dividing lines. Today, however, the global map of power is much more complex, with many actors of varying importance. This complexity makes conflicts more unpredictable and more dangerous. On the other hand, there are also efforts to prevent this worst-case scenario. Many countries are investing in more sophisticated defense systems, as well as increasing international cooperation to maintain stability. Joint military exercises, security agreements, and diplomatic forums are becoming important tools to reduce the risk of conflict. However, the effectiveness of these measures largely depends on the commitment of all parties to maintaining peace. Ultimately, this warning underscores one important point: in a world as interconnected as it is today, a major incident can never stand alone. Its impact will spread to various aspects of life, from politics and economics to global security. The sinking of an American aircraft carrier is not only about the loss of military assets, but also about the potential collapse of international stability. That is why any state, especially one with a large military force, must act with extreme caution. Decisions made in a matter of minutes can decide the fate of millions, even billions of people. The world no longer has the luxury of making big mistakes, because the consequences can be far more devastating than they have ever been. With all the factors involved, military, political, economic, technological and psychological, it is clear that the scenario described by the former CIA officer is not something to be underestimated. It's a sobering reminder of how fragile the global balance is today, and how quickly the world could slip into a major conflict if a single red line is violated.